When you look back at the founding of the United States, it's pretty wild. At every single critical moment, from the Revolution to the Constitution, one guy was always right there in the middle of it. So, in this explainer, we're not just going to talk about who George Washington was. We're going to dig into why he was the one indispensable man who could take a fledgling idea and turn it into a nation.
Okay, let's start with this quote, because really it says everything. Washington knew he wasn't just being a leader. He was literally drawing the blueprint for a country. He understood that every single thing he did would set an example, a precedent, for all the leaders who would come after him. You can just feel the weight of that responsibility in his words, and honestly, it shaped his every single move. So where did that incredible sense of duty even come from? Well, to get the general and the president, you've got to first understand the young man from Virginia. This wasn't some kind of overnight success story. Nope. It was a long, slow process of building character and skill, forged out there on the American frontier. Washington was born into a pretty well-off Virginia family, so he got the classic education of an 18th century gentleman. But his ambitions were always bigger than the plantation. From a really young age, he was obsessed with two things that went hand in hand: the military and westward expansion. And he moved up fast, going from mapping the wilderness at 16 to commanding soldiers in it just a few years later. And this is where this almost mythical aura starts to build around him. During the French and Indian War, this actually happened. 4 bullets went through his coat, 2 different horses were shot right out from under him, and he just walks away without a scratch. People saw that as more than just luck. It was a sign of incredible bravery, and it gave him this reputation of being, destined for something huge. And that something huge showed up in 1775. When the American colonies finally decided to fight for their independence, there was really only one choice for commander-in-chief. Washington was handed a nearly impossible task: lead a ragtag, barely trained army against the most powerful military on the entire planet, the British Empire. And this, right here, this shows you his strategic genius. Washington knew he couldn't win a straight-up conventional fight. The British wanted that one big knockout blow to end it all. So what did he do? He just refused to give it to them. He went with a strategy of attrition. The goal wasn't to win every battle. The goal was simply to keep his army from being destroyed, to survive, wear down the British will to fight. It was a complete break from the gentlemanly warfare of Europe. He basically changed the rules of the game. 6 years. Just let that sink in. 6 years of brutal winters, of devastating losses, of constant nagging uncertainty. But somehow, he held that army together, pretty much by sheer force of will. He finally managed to trap the main British army down at Yorktown in 1781. And with some absolutely critical help from the French fleet, he got the victory that won the entire war. But okay, winning the war, that was one thing. Now the country itself was about to fall apart. So Washington was called on again. This time, it wasn't to win a war, but to save a nation from its own collapse. So the first government they set up, under something called the Articles of Confederation, it was a complete disaster. It was way too weak. It couldn't collect taxes, it couldn't raise an army, it couldn't even settle arguments between the states. The country was basically bankrupt and falling into chaos. And Washington, who all he wanted to do was retire, saw that everything they had fought and bled for was about to just disappear. His solution? He decided to lend his massive reputation to a new project. He agreed to preside over the Constitutional Convention. His steady presence there gave the whole secret meeting a sense of legitimacy and purpose. You could say he was the anchor that let all the other delegates argue and debate and create this radical new form of government. So the Constitution gets ratified, and now there was only one person the entire country trusted to actually lead this new government. Washington was unanimously elected the first president. And now he had his final great challenge: to take the words written down in the Constitution and turn them into a real, functioning government. I mean, he basically built the executive branch from scratch. He created the cabinet system to get advice from smart people. He steered the country through tricky European politics by declaring neutrality, arguing that the young nation just needed time to get strong on its own. Every one of these moves became a fundamental precedent, just like he'd hoped. These were the unwritten rules for how the government would actually operate. But this might be his single most important act. You have to remember, this was a world of kings and emperors, of rulers for life. And here was George Washington, who could have been a king if he'd wanted, and he willingly gave up power. He was tired of politics, he was getting older, and he just stepped down after 2 terms. It was the ultimate precedent. Power serves the office, not the person in it. I mean, that was a truly revolutionary idea. So as he got ready to leave public life for good, the man they called the father of his country had some final advice for his children, so to speak. His farewell address wasn't just a goodbye note, it was a warning. He could clearly see the dangers that could tear the new nation apart. He warned against political parties that cared more about winning than about what was right. He cautioned against letting the country split between North and South, and he strongly advised against getting tangled up in other countries' problems. And when you read them, man, these warnings still sound incredibly relevant today. After all that, Washington only got to enjoy less than 3 years of retirement at his beloved home, Mount Vernon, before he died from a sudden throat infection. For months, the entire country he had worked so hard to create mourned his loss. He really was the steady hand that had guided them through everything. So that leaves us with this question, right? From the general who refused to be a king to the president who warned us about political division, his legacy is just packed with lessons. When you think about all the challenges we face in the world today, which piece of his advice do you think matters the most?